The views, information, opinions expressed during the show are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Voices, the individual's employers, organization, committee, or other group or individuals. This is Voices, a space where we get to bravely share our truth, stories, experiences, and art. A ton of dope people who will motivate you, make you cry, make you laugh, bring some hope into your life, but just maybe they'll share something interesting enough to help you find your voice. Welcome to Voices. Hey guys, welcome to Voices. I'm Lexirosa. Today, I am joined by someone I respect, someone I think is amazing, Ozay Moore. He is I'm gonna say a community leader in our town, the founder of All of the Above Hip Hop Academy and AOTA Creative, and a music artist, and so much more. And you're a dad and a husband and a good person.
Oh, I'm trying.
Thank you for being on Voices.
Thank you for having me. I say all the same things to you. I mean, I know you get down on the mic and hop in the cypher and that stuff, but you're incredibly talented and a wonderful human being as well. So it's good to be here. Appreciate you.
Okay, so this episode is going to be a little different than other episodes because we're going to walk through a couple things. One, part of Voices relaunch, rebranding, redesign came from a conversation I had with you. So we're gonna start off by talking about how we decided to remove the word marginalized. Then we'll transition into Ozay as an artist, as a person, and then a little bit about what you do in the community, and we'll close it out with advice for the folks watching. So
let's see what we can do. See what I can do. I know you got it.
You got it. So let's start off with the day that we had a conversation. Mm-hmm. We're going hard.
Let's go.
The day we had the conversation where you told me, like, Lex, I like what you're doing, but every time I hear this word, I cringe. So let's bring it back to that moment.
Yeah, I was just cringing, I was like, I know what this is supposed to be. And I know what your heart is. I know what you're trying to accomplish. And one part, it's hard when you have to tell a friend that, like, yeah, I like it all, but, and they have to say something critical, you know what I mean? But it's whack to not do that to the people that you care about. You can let folks keep on bumbling around and fumbling around and really not be supporting them on the low and be telling them like, yeah, it's great, keep going. And you really don't care. So you just like, gassing them and feeding them BS answers. But on the back end, what I'm saying, you feel some kind of way about what they're doing. So, I just cringed at the word marginalized. It was said in such a way that it was like supposed to be endearing. And but then there was also this era of like, where's that word coming from? Who put that in the script? I don't think that's what she's trying to say. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so when we talked, it was like, okay, where did we come up with that word? So where did we come up with that word?
Yeah, let's go there. No, so when we were designing Voices, the goal was to empower, right? To empower voices of people I knew who were sharing with me privately their experiences. And this was at a critical time where people were denying that racism existed. Right. And I was kind of in like shock that is some people's worldview. And so, but I also don't believe in tokenism, where you're asking like people to come and give some of their time, but then we also don't, yes, I'm helping promote your voice, but I believe in financial belief too. And I knew, okay, I could be a bridge. If we could get some dollars to put into the hands of folks that look like me, this is like a win-win. Like it's not tokenism, I'm investing. And if I have white people, now I'm like struggling with categorization, right? But if I have people that are different than who I'm having on our show investing, then it's a win-win. But what happened was now you're sitting in tables and you're making contracts, you're making proposals, you're making presentations to say, hey, business owner, hey, organization, like this is something you should invest in. And now how am I describing, it's not just black, brown, folks, it's those that aren't typically heard. What about different disabilities? What about sexism? Like there's so many layers that I wanted a wider range of category of people. And so I actually it's funny because I remember Googling, okay, like black and brown synonyms. Like I just remember Googling, and then I was like, marginalized, like genuinely in my journalism background being like, okay, that's the right word. And then also sitting in groups where it was like, oh yeah, marginalized, and so you're getting this approval from, it's like a word that is used, now you're getting approval, but I take ownership. I'm the one that was like, this is the right word, and believing it's the right word, and yeah, saying it in an endearing way, right? Until, and here's what's interesting too, I ran it through a couple people, but it wasn't until, again, those hard conversations happen that actually puts a check in your spirit. Because people may be like, I don't like that word in passing, but until somebody you respect is like, hey, let's talk about that word. Let's talk about why it's a no-go. Honestly, our conversation was the most crucial for me to say, like, halt, we're stopping everything, because if it's upsetting anybody, and it's not accurate, it's actually not even representative of what I'm trying to do, and I might actually be a part of the problem. And that was probably the harder pill to swallow, is to go, I've actually bought into maybe a narrative that I didn't even knew I subscribed to, and I didn't want to subscribe to, that I categorize myself in this position of I'm marginalized, instead of like, I'm actually way more than that,
Right. Yeah, and also you're a businesswoman in Lansing, small city. It's really small. Resources here are tough, to tap into. You know what I'm saying? So there's one part you're trying to navigate making something pop and get the support and resources you need, and you're in these white spaces.
Trying to play by the rules.
And you're trying to speak the language. You're just like, hey, I just cut the check. Really, if I were just to be real with you, just give me the money and get out the way. Let me do but I have to write these proposals. I have to make it make sense to you. And what happens is a lot of times in these, spaces that operate under these white frameworks, there is like, colonizing type undertones, savior mentality undertones, Especially, so just to be real, sometimes even dealing with the church, you know what I mean? Like, you could say, hey, we're going to go out in the hood and just like pop up and have a good time and kick it, build relationship, build community, no other agenda, but it's like, well, what's the point of being out there? You're going to be sharing the gospel, and who's your target audience? I mean, it's terrible. Like, even working nonprofit working, it's like your target audience and this and that. What's the numbers of this? What's the numbers of kids you served in this category and this, that? And it's like these categories end up being, one, we celebrate our individuality, we celebrate who we are, where we come from. But so in so many situations can those beautiful things be turned around and weaponized against people, right? So you feel like you understand what it means to be black, or understand what black means, or like Latino, Latinx, or Puerto Rican, Dominican. You understand that because of why, you know what I'm saying? And so it's real easy to kind of lump people into like kind of a classification with words like marginalized, without talking about why marginalization exists. My personal belief is you don't really need to bring that up unless you're willing to talk about why it's there in the first place. Like, why are we saying marginalized? Are we going to call out the institutions and the systems that push people to the fringes, or make it so they don't got new books in their schools, or make it so they don't have the resources and it's a food desert where they're living at? Let's talk about that. Why is that? Let's talk about city planning and poor city planning. Let's talk about redlining. Let's talk about all of that, because all of that plays into what marginalization is. You know what I'm saying? So if we're not going to talk about that, you know what I'm saying, we're just celebrating people as people. And sometimes the magic is in my personal opinion, from the artist's perspective, is like sometimes taking out some of those explicit details and allowing room for ambiguity and tension. You know what I'm saying? Like, so if you say, we're going to be building with folks in the community, or hey, I know some talented people, let's talk. But you on the back end are saying, I'm giving voices to folks who don't typically have these spaces to be in.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's way more dynamic and powerful than on the forefront being like, hey, let's give space to the marginalized so as to cater to those people that are looking to see, like, what's my good earned money going to? So I can feel good about the fact you're connected with people I can't connect with. You know what I'm saying? And that happens all the time. You know how many times I hear like, hey, we like rocking with you because you can work with people we can't relate with. You know what I'm saying? I was like, I appreciate that and I accept that, but let's leave it right there. Don't say nothing else. You know what I'm saying? Don't just cut the check and get out the way. You know what I'm saying? We'll report and speak the language and all that stuff, but just give us the money and let us do our work. Because it can get complicated real quick with language and terminology and degrading really quick with language and terminology that's inaccurate, inappropriate, and dehumanizing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna rabbit trail a lot in this conversation. I just want to spit a whole bunch of stuff out. And
I love it.
And then we can just take it there. But you know, that was really my initial feeling. It's like, I know she's trying to say something else. Let's just talk about that and work it out. And on the back end, people do have agendas for why they want to say stuff like that. They can feel good about their colonizing efforts.
Well, and I would say, like, I think you're hitting on something. I think my show objective was to try to appeal to both.
Right.
Which is why that language was used, but I didn't know. I think when I wrote the script, it was based off of other language I had used from presentations, you know? And I can't communicate the objective of the sponsors, like that they even knew, right? But I think you hit on something really key. The language was that way to try to appeal to both instead of slowing down and going like, that ain't right.
Yeah.
Why am I trying to appeal to both?
You know how I love the energy of folks being unapologetically who they are in spaces where traditionally they might have felt uncomfortable to do so. Man, that's liberating. It really is.
And I'm learning that. Isn't it? That sucks, but I'm learning it.
The crazy thing is you have to like wrestle with.
You're like code switching. You're showing up one place and you're like, hi guys.
What if we decided not to code switch ever anymore at all? What would happen? People would have to wrestle with their preconceived ideas of who they think you are based upon how you dress, talk, act, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
To call into question your competence or capacities for getting the job done and doing it right. Like this idea of what professional looks like is totally in a white framework. You know, Eurocentric white framework. You know what I mean? And when it becomes more about that and getting the work done, we got to talk about that. Let's talk about that. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I'm all about that. And I've been wrestling with that myself. I grew up, like, my dad, biracial, right? So, my mom was white, father's black. My dad, it's not that he didn't like white people, but he had issues with white folks. He had issues in spaces where, I mean, this is the same man who got spat on when he was performing and ran out of bars. You know what I'm saying? And he'd be ready to sign the deal, and the guy who was getting ready to sign the check looks at him and is like, the mailroom's downstairs. And he's like, oh, okay. And he leaves, right? Because he's like, that's humiliating. I'm actually the person you're supposed to be talking to. You're telling me I need to be downstairs? So he had issues. A lot of his best laid plans were kind of like thwarted or have fallen apart by the decision of a white man or a person in power that way. You know what I mean? So he raised us to, hey, get in there and do what you got to do, and don't play yourself out of pocket. Don't be stuck on stupid. That was his term. Don't be stuck on stupid. So you got to know how to play this game, and it's a game. Play it. You know what I mean? And things have changed since when he was trying to navigate the world. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I love the fact that we as black folks, as people of color, as Puerto Ricans, as Dominicans, Latinas, and Guatemalans, and Japanese, Korean, I mean, whatever, wherever you're coming from, you could just be unapologetically you and let people wrestle with what they think about you on their own terms. And now we have the data and the language and the information to call into question those biases and really categorize them for what they really are, which all boils down to white supremacy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that being the standard. That is the standard. Eurocentric ways of doing things being the standard. And it shouldn't be. What I like about the energy shift of last year, you know, and it's a shame that it takes the world being on fire for folks to be like, okay, this is for real. You know what I'm saying? And have the data and now people want to have these conversations. We've gotten so much support through diversity and equity inclusion efforts and strategies. This is like, it's almost like, I hope this wave doesn't die out. We're catching it and I appreciate it, but at the same time, let's let this not be a trend. And what I'm liking though is I'm seeing like our community folks folks are feeling empowered and folks are listening in a different way though too. You know what I'm saying? Allies or whatnot. And I mean, it's basic math. It's hard to deny something you're watching and then you have data to support. You have a history that has tried to be whitewashed for, you know, nationalists type, reasons and purposes to try to make people feel unified under this flag. And really we're not. We're so divided. And you can look at, the civil rights era, post-civil rights, and say that like, racism doesn't exist anymore because Malcolm and Martin and, there's all that and Rosa Parks. And now we celebrate it 1 month and we're good. And not address the deep systemic issues that we have. That's the hard work. And I feel like this last year, it was like, yo, we really need to look at this. Because you asking the wrong question. You're asking why people are burning stuff up. You know what I'm saying? You're asking why people are looting their own communities. It's like, no, the real question is, why aren't we willing to address the things that perpetuate situations and climates in our communities that make it to where people have to fight for their existence? Like fight to have their basic needs met this way, right? But we also are a capitalistic society. So how can you use that again? How can you use that sword against folks who are capitalizing when we are a capitalistic society also, right? I'm rabbit trailing. You guys
this is good. No, this is good.
So anyway, to all of that, learning from my pops how to navigate the system and being like, okay, I have to work hard. I have to like be smart about it. But when you're in the room, when you have the room open and when you have the floor, when you have a seat at the table, it's not enough for you to have the seat at the table alone. You know what I'm saying? It's like you need to bring other folks into this community. I don't speak for my whole community. You know what I mean? Like, cool, you brought me on, that's great. But you need to bring her and him and them and they and everybody else in here. So if you want an accurate representation as to what you need to do with these, if you find out there's so much money out there and there are resources and it's not as scarce as it seems, they just don't put the money where it needs to go. It's like, oh, you need more people in here to help tell you what to do. You're over here making terrible decisions and signing on that, and you didn't even let the community weigh in. You know what I mean? And so you start knowing, you see that on the back end, and you're like, okay, word. So for my family, for my community, yeah, we're just gonna keep these doors open and keep getting more folks at the table to talk about the things that we truly need, yeah, I mean that's kind of how not being stuck on stupid or not being getting played out of pocket is it. Because if we do not bring our community to the table, folks will feel good about the little efforts, a little this, a little that, a little money towards this park, a little money towards that, little new books at this school, new that, but no significant change. Because you're not hearing from the community truly, So anyway.
How have you navigated through those spaces unapologetically yourself?
The stakes are high. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, if I'm here, if I have a seat at the table, let me not waste this opportunity. I'm not gonna lie, like, when you first get invited into spaces like learning how to speak the language, because I don't even know what you're talking about, honestly. Like, I don't know what none of this means. Like, what? So you spend some time just listening and being like, you hear something that sounds kind of wild and you ask a question, and you just sit back and listen, and you ask another question, it's like, wait a minute, y'all don't even know what you're doing. Oh, I'm fit to be here. If I'm not here, then you would have signed off on something that was a horrible idea. No, listen, that's what's going on here? It's just representation. We need more folks at the table helping to make these decisions, really. So, I mean, that helps me be unapologetically me, because you need to change. We need to change the way we perceive professionalism and stepping out of these Eurocentric kind of ideas of what quality looks like, what professionalism looks like, what value, how you attribute value, where the dollars should go. You know what I'm saying? Like, we know our community. We know our community better than folks who have the money know our community. Let us deal and handle the things in our community. You know what I'm saying? And in a lot of ways, just step out the way. You know, we'll report to you and let you know how things are going. We got this. We can do this. You know what I mean? So that's a broad statement. So, but you know, that's kind of how I feel. And so I'm motivated by that.
Is that part of how you designed or founded and created AOTA? What was the heartbeat behind that?
That was a lot. That was pretty simple. That was like, here I am at an intersection of my life where I'm not on the road anymore. You know, I'm not traveling. I'm not doing that. You know, it's about my family.
Let's give context. So Ozay, amazing artist. Go find him on Spotify or Apple Music. You're an amazing artist. So how long have you been doing that for?
Since early 90s. You know, first recordings were like 3rd grade on a karaoke box. You know what I mean? Like, I used to get blank tapes and go get cassette singles and blank tape, cassette single, record play, Radio Shack mic, and just rap over all the instrumentals at the, on the maxi singles. And I would take those tapes and sell them at school for hot lunch. Like, here's my,
you know. That taught you well.
So that was a hustle. We were hustling.
That was the start.
That was the start, I signed my first like independent deal like 2000, and I spent like the majority, the next like 10 or 11, 12 years touring and being on the road, and just, that was kind of, my vocation. That was what I was doing. And then I moved to Lansing. I got married in 06, and my wife and I, we traveled together and we started having children. And it was like, okay, I didn't really have a backup plan after this, but I'd been introduced to hip hop ed. I didn't have a backup plan after music or like, music career, record industry and that sort of thing. And so I got introduced to hip hop ed, and just this idea of being able to take what I knew in the culture and put them in more academic spaces, so as to bridge the gap or to add a wrinkle to the curriculum, a different lens or approach to the curriculum, still meeting those grade level standards, and whatnot, but just doing it different. But that was at Clippard Academy in Southwest Detroit. I was driving out there every, a few times a week for a whole year. But it was like, man, we need something like this in Lansing. This would be amazing. We have no, what are our after school programs or residency programs, art integration residency programs, where we don't have that, Meanwhile, I'm thinking, I'm here, I'm invested, I want to be in Lansing. And so we started some after school programs, and it was fueled by the fact that we thought kids were doing it wrong. It was like, what are you doing? Like I don't understand what you're rapping about, I don't get the beats. I don't know. So we originally were going to trying to inundate them with what we thought was real hip hop. And we were going to teach y'all the ways. You need to know KRS-One and Big Daddy Kane. You need to understand these things. We still do, but in the context of celebrating where the new generation is taking it. So it's like, here's your historical context. Don't let them take our history and our culture away from us. That's like, we write it off like it's not important. It's so important. It's so important to know our history. You know what I'm saying? And I talk to folks. I'm like, there's not a single kid playing the cello who doesn't know who Beethoven is or doesn't know who Chopin is, right? They're able to keep that history, keep that narrative. You know what I'm saying? So it's like in hip hop culture, we should know the architects. We should know the folks who came before us to help establish it, right? That we can build off of. For a variety of reasons, but it's empowering to know where you're coming from and where you're from and where this culture's from. So anyway, over the years, we kind of shifted the program from being this way of this mechanism to inundate kids to appreciate and like real hip hop, to where we're just building community and we're being a resource. We have this term, it's like, it's better to be somebody's OG than it is to be another old head in the room who's just telling folks you're doing it wrong. It's like OGs add value to the lives and the people that they deal with and how to navigate their communities, how to make it, right? Whether that's music as a vocation or just getting a job or just helping young people become the successful people they want to be.
Yes.
The role of the OG does that. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm going to add value to your life opposed to telling you everything you're doing wrong. I don't know. I'm not your age. I don't know, you know? And so as soon as we got comfortable with not knowing, is as soon as we started seeing fruit. And we started feeling like, oh, this is working. We were stepping into this situation all wrong. Wow, look at I too was a victim of this power dynamic, or embrace this power dynamic where certain people have the answers and certain people have the keys. And you're the ones that need to teach. And you're the ones who's gonna get it done and make everything right. And it's not right, it's collaborative, you know what I'm saying? Right. Young people are stepping to the scene and they know what they want. They may need a little context, sure, we all do. But that's the role of the person that comes before them, is to pass along that narrative and share that, and then they take it a step further. So anyway, over 10 years, we started, like I said, with some pretty shaky intentions, and then we figured it out, you know, and here we are now doing that work, you know, inspiring young people. How many years has it been? It's been over 10 now.
This is 11.
Yeah.
This is year 11.
Year 11. So yeah, that's what we do.
Did you ever picture it the way it is now? Did you picture it to evolve? Did you picture all the above Hip Hop Academy to get to this year 11?
I hoped, you know what I'm saying? I really just hoped, you know, and we worked. The whole crew, everybody who's involved worked. You know, my wife and I worked, you know, Carla Solo worked, James worked, you know, and everybody who's a part now, you have helped work this thing out, you know? And so I think we desired for it to be, you know, what folks were believing it could be, but we didn't have a whole lot of there wasn't a lot of blueprints on how to take like something that is so rooted as a counterculture, you know what I'm saying? And it's not a nonprofit organization. It's not like, it doesn't function that way, and do it authentically, but also, you know, abide by 501c3 guidelines and expectations and whatnot. And so I think we figured it out. We're still figuring it out, but along the way, having impact in you know, changing lives, I hope. You know, we'll see, but that's what we're here for.
What do you hope every youth, or even, I guess, two aspects, what do you hope every leader gets, or volunteer, contributor, part of the crew, what do you hope they get out of AOTA, and then what do you hope the youth get out of AOTA? Because you're helping two ways, honestly, actually three, and then the community. And
this is gonna sound like a cop-out, but it's really the only way I know how to answer it. I hope folks get what they need, you know what I mean? The pandemic kind of showed us, like, it was a window into the need of our young people, the need to connect and be in community, you know? And needs they're deep, you know what I'm saying? They're not just like, I need this, if I get this, it's all good. It's like a continuum of needs. You just constantly have needs, you know what I'm saying? And as long as people are rocking with us or involved in what we're doing, hopefully those needs are getting met, whether it's communal, whether it's, you know, creative outlets. Hopefully at one point in time we could be, you know, financially strong to create careers in hip hop ed work and hip hop mentoring. That's a need we want to meet for folks. It's a need we want to meet for heads in the community who I know are good at this work, and if provided the opportunity to do this full time as a job, as a career, we want to be able to say, here you go. Here we got the framework, and this is how it's going to do, and we need you here, you know. So. Yeah, that's my answer for that. I just hope folks get what they need while they're with us. I hope our kids, you know, get what they need as they're navigating, you know, navigating their world too, you know, so.
And I would say that it does help people get their needs. Even me, right, as an adult, like, it was a space that felt like I did kind of belong. Like, I felt like there was artists. I was like, there's just amazing talent in the room, and you feel honored to be in the room. It's funny, I feel like being a part of AOTA in some aspects kept me here longer than maybe I would have.
The same, yeah, I feel that. You know, it's there's something about Lansing, you know, it is not where I thought I would ever end up. You know, I got here, and as soon as I got here, I was ready to leave. You know, I was like, this place is backwards, you know what I mean? At least that's how I felt. Me, like, you're looking at folks and you're like, man, there's a lot of great people here.
Amazing people.
Incredible talent, incredible human beings. It's like, and it's affordable to live here. I mean, You talk about what Lansing is, shoot, you can be all right and not burn your wick at both ends in Lansing. You know what I'm saying? I even think about moving back to Seattle and I get stressed out. I'm like, oh, but I would be, I'd have to, can I sustain that? And honestly, in terms of quality of life here and community, yo, it's the grass is greener where you water it. That's the real, you know what I'm saying? Where you put your time and effort and energy into and you invest, that's where it's gonna be best, for real. You know, so we live by that.
I feel like you have so many wise words. I don't even know how we've gone and navigated through this.
I don't remember what the original question was.
The beginning,
to be real
middle,
with you,
end.
Lex.
I hope we have it. Is there anything that that you want to ask me, or anything that I didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about?
No, we were talking about the language, you know, marginalization and where these terms come from. I think we settled on at least some things to chew on. You know, it's a learning experience for everybody. You know, there's good people saying whack stuff all the time. You know, there's well-intentioned people who don't got the language right, and they mean well. I think the challenge for us is to be able to enter into those spaces, not from I'm teaching you, but here's an opportunity for us to learn from each other, to maybe get deeper perspective and understanding as to what somebody's heart intent is. If the heart intent needs challenging, then let's challenge that. Because I think most people can agree that, you know, folks want to have their needs met. Folks want to feel valued. Folks want to feel connected. Folks want to feel, you know, valued. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of things that get in the way of either being able to value yourself or to value other people in the way that they should be valued. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of that's some unlearning. This last year, oh man, the last 10 years has been this crazy, just undoing of a lot of things. And I think when you can step out and I don't know, be brave enough to say I don't know, but I'm willing to learn. That's where it starts. You know what I'm saying? I think more people are so concerned about talking over folks and making their voice heard and as if they know everything, and put a period, exclamation mark, all caps, red, underline, you know, on the things they say, not knowing that, man, you probably don't know. I know I don't know. I just be talking.
The potential to be, but you know, it's funny, I always say humility is knowing you have the potential to be wrong.
That's right, that's real. Wise words, that's wise.
But no, thank you so much for having the hard conversation back then, doing it with grace, like even being willing to help me as I was like, are you willing to like just recheck this out? Like have a conversation with me in front of the camera. Like, thank you you could have said, no, I don't have the capacity. And I know how busy you are and I know how much you do. And so I just thank you for caring enough to have this conversation with me and for sharing your wisdom. This episode of Voices has been brought to you by Blue Owl Coffee and Vision Success Marketing and Consulting.